Hello, fellow introverts. Welcome to Absinthe and Ink. I'm MJ, and I like books. I really like books. I really like books. Mostly classics, but I also will read just about anything that strikes my fancy. But do you know what I don't like? What I really don't like? Is summer. I mean, it's hot, it's sticky, it's infested with bugs that either want to steal my food or suck my blood. And Mother Nature, well, she's kind of a bitch during this season. She likes to throw out the occasional violent thunderstorm that knocks the power out, leaving you sitting with no air conditioning in the dark, wondering if every little sound that you hear is either a ghost or an axe murderer. Or, well, maybe that's just me. But the thing I really hate most about summer are flip flops. Come on, people. The sound of that cheap plastic flapping against your fleshy feet. It reminds me of a old coworker of mine who used to sit behind me, and he would eat lunch at his desk, and he would smack his way through it like it was the last meal he was ever going to have. I'd rather listen to a symphony of screaming babies than that smacking. And it makes me kind of crazy. So, in order to keep my sanity, I just avoid people as much as possible. And I do that by staying indoors and reading books. Now, I know it's summer, and I know there's nothing I can do about it, except maybe share some of the books that I bought in the month of June with you, and with you, and you in the back, as long as you're not wearing flip-flops. So, the first book that I picked up is by Richard Harding Davis. Now, Richard Harding Davis was an American war correspondent who wrote novels and plays, and he was pretty popular on both sides of the Atlantic, even though now he's fairly obscure. But one of his pieces that's really worth checking out is In the Fog. Now, this is a novella. It's about 66 pages, and this is about the members of the Grill Club. Now, the Grill Club is a really exclusive, kind of secretive club in London. And this story focuses on the events that take place during the fog of 1897. And there's three members of the Grill Club who begin to tell a story about things that happened to them. And this includes the murder of a Russian princess, some stolen jewels, and some cases of mistaken identity. But this book is mostly known for its surprising twist at the end. And it's unique. I have to say that I didn't expect the ending to be the way that it was. And it's really worth reading. It's very short. And I think you could probably read this in an hour or two with a nice cup of coffee or whatever your preferred beverage is. So I really highly recommend checking this one out. As a matter of fact, I think this has just recently been released. So, In the Fog by Richard Harding Davis, check it out. Now, the next book that I picked up surprised me because this was a book I never thought I would be interested in reading. But the book club, that I'm a member of on Patreon is reading this book for July. And so that book is The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. And it surprises me because I just have never been interested in reading Steinbeck. But wow, was I missing out. Let me tell you something. If you haven't read Steinbeck, stop looking at this video, as entertaining as it is, and go and get yourself a copy of this and start reading it. It is phenomenal. Now, this was published in 1939, and it's about the plight of the Joad family, who are kicked off their farm during the Dust Bowl and migrate to the supposed promised land of California. And the book is about their journey there and the things that happen to them and the things that, well, don't happen to them once they get there. Now, I don't want to give too much away because this book is going to get its own review and I don't want to put any spoilers in this video. But Steinbeck addresses things like poverty and economic disparity, social injustice, discrimination, But he also delves into the concept of the unity and strength in family and community. So this book is going to send you through all kinds of different emotions. You're going to be angry, you're going to be sad, you're going to cry, you're going to laugh. Seriously, this book is going to do all kinds of strange things to you, and the ending is going to leave you breathless. Now, I enjoyed that book so much that I also picked up this one, East of Eden. And as you can see, I'm a little more than halfway through it. And this book is having kind of the same effect on me as Grapes of Wrath did. The characters in this book are just incredible. Now, this was written in 1952, I think, and it's a retelling of the biblical story of Cain and Abel. And I can just imagine Steinbeck sweating over every word that he put in this book because it's just perfection. Now, the characters in this book are almost, you have to experience them. I can't describe them. You have to experience them. You have to meet them. You have to read this book and become a part of the story, which is something that Steinbeck just does such an amazing job of. But there's one particular character in this book, and her name is Kathy. And she is the most horrendously evil character I have ever run across. I mean, Professor Moriarty, he's got nothing on this girl. Seriously, this book and Grapes of Wrath, I can't recommend these highly enough. Now, the third book that I picked up is another Steinbeck, and it's The Noble Acts of King Arthur. And the reason that I picked this book up is because I've been fascinated with the Arthurian legends ever since I saw the movie Excalibur as a kid. And if you know when Excalibur came out, then you can probably guess how old I am. But this isn't about me. No. It's about the book. Remember, it's about the book. And the other reason that I picked this book up is because I wanted to see how Steinbeck's narrative voice changes between something like Grapes of Wrath and East of Eden compared to a retelling of the Arthurian legends. And Steinbeck didn't finish this book. And the reason he didn't finish this book is because one day while he was sitting in England working steadily away on this book, his wife came in and said, "John, would you mind taking a break and taking the trash out for me?" And John, being the decent chap that he was, said, "Sure." So John got up and went and took the trash out, and he forgot to come back and finish the book. I'm sorry, what? That's not what happened. Okay, I don't know why Steinbeck didn't finish the book, but it was released in 1976 after Steinbeck died. And Steinbeck did spend some time in England while he was writing the book, and apparently those were the happiest times of his life. So even though this is an unfinished masterpiece, I'm really looking forward to getting into this one. So the next book I picked up is Big Money by P.G. Wodehouse. And if you don't know who P.G. Wodehouse is, I just have to ask, where the hell have you been? Wodehouse is comic gold. Well, actually, no, he's comic platinum with some diamonds thrown in. Now, if you don't know who P.G. Wodehouse is, he's the creator of Jeeves and Wooster, and he also did a series on Blanding's Castle. Now, if you don't want to get into a series necessarily, and you can read those books in any order, it doesn't matter, but this is a standalone. Now, I don't know much about this book because I haven't read it yet, but from what I understand, it's about a character named Lord Biskerton, who is known to his friends as Biscuit. And he doesn't like to work, but he needs to get some money. And his friend, whose name is Barry Conway, works for what Wodehouse describes as a dyspeptic American who had $20 million and loved every cent of it. Now, Barry Conway is his secretary. Now, both men fall in love with Frisbee's niece, whose name is Anne Moon. And they want to find a way to get some money to kind of woo her because she's going to be the heiress of Frisbee's fortune. Now, they get a little bit of help from a character named Aunt Vera. And if you know Wodehouse, you know that aunts play a big role in Wodehouse's stories. Now, the next book that I picked up is The Small Bachelor by P.G. Wodehouse. Now, this book I did read. I actually picked this book up in this edition when I was in Edinburgh last year for the ride home. I went to Armchair Books and picked up this copy. And I'm really glad that I did because my flight home was basically a shit show. They canceled my flight the night before and told me the only way that I was going to be able to get back home was to take a flight that would drop me off at an airport 2 hours away from where our car was. So basically, we had to fly into that airport, stand through customs, and then try to get an Uber 2 hours back to the airport where we had originally taken off from. So it caused a little bit of stress and anxiety, and Wodehouse was the answer to that. I mean, this book is absolutely hilarious. It's one of my favorite Wodehouse books, and I really love these Everyman editions. Now, this is a story about an artist who has recently inherited a large amount of money, and he falls in love with a girl named Molly. But the problem is not that Molly doesn't love him. She does. But Molly's father is married to Molly's stepmother, a rather tyrannical woman who doesn't want her stepdaughter marrying an artist, which is considered beneath her. She doesn't know that George is very wealthy. Now, the other stories that are going on in this book involve a butler who is engaged to a jewel thief, and also a lord who is trying to marry Molly. But at the same time, Molly's father has also made some rather poor judgments as far as his investments, and now he has to rely on his wife's money. And during all this, there's also a friend of George's who is a poet, but, well, he's not really a poet, but he poses as one, and he's teaching a policeman how to write poetry. Now, unlike most of P.G. Wodehouse's books that take place in England, this book takes place in New York during Prohibition. So you can imagine the shenanigans that are going on between the pages here. If you haven't read any P.G. Wodehouse, I would really recommend you start with Jeeves and Wooster. But if you don't want to go that way, this is a fantastic book. I believe that it was actually based on a musical that Wodehouse was involved in writing. So yeah, this is one of Wodehouse's funniest books. And finally, the last book that I picked up is Persuasion by Jane Austen. Now, I've read some Jane Austen, but I haven't read this one. Now, I know the story is about Anne Elliot and Captain Wentworth who become engaged, and then Anne's family kind of disapproves of him because he's not wealthy, and so she, being the good daughter that she is, decides to break off the engagement. And 8 years later, Wentworth comes back a wealthy man, and things get a little awkward. But the reason that I want to read this is because I understand that this was published after Jane Austen died, and this is a much beloved favorite of a lot of people on YouTube because the writing is supposed to be just really fantastic. And the other reason that I want to read this book is that none of the characters are wearing flip-flops. Now, if you enjoyed my little run-through my June book haul here, consider giving this a like and hitting the subscribe button because I'm going to be doing some more reviews. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.